Well, that was just outright embarrassing for the Colorado Buffaloes. Deion Sanders and his crew go to Oregon 3-0 and face the 3-1. I'm sorry, 3-0 Oregon Ducks, and it was an absolute bloodbath. And the reason that I titled this "You See Humbled" on the thumbnail is because during I live streamed the game, as you saw, and all I've been hearing on the Twitterverse and throughout the live stream was that Deion Sanders and Colorado needed to be humbled. Now, before we go any further, I did see a few players come out to the Oregon O in the middle of the field, and one dude wiped his feet. That's what I saw. And you can't do that. You can't be that disrespectful, right? You can't be disrespectful. You can't do that. It's like coming into your house and not taking off your shoes. So I get that part. It was, from what I saw, it was one guy. It might have been more. It might have been less. But that was the players. And obviously the players reflect the coaches. Now, as a parent myself, you have things that you're trying to instill into your children, and you hope that you give them enough, you teach them enough that when they're away from you, they do right? Now, do I think wiping your feet in the middle of the field is disrespectful? I do. But what I heard today was that Deion Sanders needed to be humbled. And I'm 44 years old, so I was 10 years old. I was very, very young when Deion Sanders came into the league, and I watched him as I was growing up. Deion Sanders has always been a certain way, and you can confuse arrogance with confidence, and I think sometimes you have to walk a fine line between arrogance and confidence. Deion Sanders, the football player, not only was he confident, he had swag, the same swag he has now as a coach, but he backed it up. And I don't think Deion Sanders was ever overly cocky, overly arrogant, but he could have been. He could have been. I like Deion Sanders because Deion Sanders is a guy that he believes in himself. And at the end of the day, that's really all you have, right? So I kept hearing that he needed to be humbled. And I've watched the whole Colorado Buffalo thing. I've seen what they've gone through. And I like their story. They beat TCU. They beat Nebraska. They came from behind and beat the Colorado State, right, last year. And along the way, Nebraska said some things. Matt Rule said some things about the coach, right? The Colorado State coach said something about coach. I'm not sure what TCU did, but nobody expected them to beat TCU. They did, and now they have 2 more wins than they had all of last year, right? And I think that the public has confused Coach Prime's confidence and confused it with arrogance. Now, I want to show you a difference. And the reason I brought up what the other coaches did is because this guy, this is the Oregon Ducks head coach. And here's what he said. This is before the game. I want to know your thoughts about this. Let me bring this in.
Rooted in substance, not flash. Rooted in substance. Today, we talk with our pads. You talk with your helmet, right? Every moment. The Cinderella story is over, man. Right? They're fighting for clicks. We're fighting for wins. There's a difference, right? There's a difference. Right? This game ain't going to be played in Hollywood. It's going to be played on the grass. Right? It's going to be played on the grass. Let's go. Rooted in substance.
So,
not flash.
Here's my thing. What did Colorado do to you? What I have not heard anything this entire week about any type of rift between Oregon and outside of the players wiping their feet on the thing, which was pregame, right? But what coach said here is rooted in substance, not flash. We're not going to be playing in Hollywood. The Cinderella story ends today. In my opinion, that sounds like hate. Now, you're trying to motivate your team. I understand that, but this team didn't do nothing to you. This thing, let me tell you why this is a story. Colorado is a story because of who their coach is. Deion Sanders is probably the greatest cornerback that we've ever seen. right?
Practice it is. I don't say
Ain't no probably. He's the greatest cornerback. Went two ways, played multiple, played baseball, was drafted by the. I mean, this guy has talked the talk, and a lot of people confuse arrogance with confidence and ability. And Jackson State, nobody really was paying attention to them until Deion Sanders got there, changed some things, right? Got a player drafted. As a matter of fact, he plays on my team. His name is James Houston. Now all of a sudden, he comes to Colorado. Colorado was 1-11 last year. Most of the people that were there, the players, are gone because of the change of culture that Deion Sanders has brought, right? You come off, you knock off TCU. You getting all this love and all this attention. Yeah, Coach Prime is partly responsible for that, mostly responsible for that because of who he is, who he was before he even got to Colorado, right? But to say like the Cinderella story and all that stuff, we know that when you saw this game on the schedule, you knew these guys didn't stand a chance, and it showed today. The offensive line was terrible. It was terrible. As a matter of fact, he was sacked 7 times. 7 times. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, was this warranted? Is this now they did embrace and do seem like they were cordial at the end of the game. And it could be just a rah-rah thing to get the team riled up, right? But here's what Coach Prime had to say after the game.
it translates in practice. It is. I don't say stuff just to say it for a click, contrary to what somebody say. But yeah, I keep receipts. But I'm serious. I analyze and I understand what we're up against and what we have and what we need. One thing that I could say honestly and candidly, you better get me right now. This is the worst we're going to be. You better get me right now. Now somebody, yeah, I got messengers. God bless him though, man. He's a great coach. He did a great job. God bless him. He can take their shots. They won. I don't shoot. I don't do that. They won. It translates.
All right, now even before the game, right? Did Deion Sanders know he was outmatched? Of course he did. Of course he did. But he wasn't going to tell his players that. He wasn't going to have them thinking they couldn't hang with Oregon. What kind of coach is going to tell you that you out of your league? The defensive line was terrible. I mean, everything about the team, they looked like they were in a peewee league, right? But Deion Sanders even said before this, we about 8 or 9 pieces away, all right, out of their league. But they still got in there and fought. Now, of course, I'm not trying to defend Coach Prime, but they hate. This whole thing just sounds like hate to me. It just sounds like he was hating on Prime. That's all it was, right? Because let's be real. Like I said earlier in the video, this thing is a thing. The Colorado Buffaloes are a thing because Deion Sanders is there, right? You know that. Wherever Prime goes, it's going to be a thing, period, right? So I think that whole thing was unnecessary. I know a lot of y'all going to disagree. I wouldn't be surprised if this finds a different audience and it's going to have to be a lot of derogatory comments. What I like what he said was, and I didn't see anything wrong with what Coach said. Coach Prime said, hey, I keep receipts. It ain't over. It ain't over. Yeah, you kicked my butt, but we going to be back. We going to be back, right? You think he going to hang his head down for next week? No, man. They got to get up. So I like it. And he gave kudos to kudos. And even before that, he said we got our butts kicked. That's it, right? Got our butts kicked. But I just think that this whole thing, I don't think that they're overhyped. I think that it's a good story. And I think that today showed the pieces that they're missing. And it was only a matter of time because let me tell you something. As a Lions fan, you see it in the background. Winning covers everything. The minute you lose is the minute everything you're lacking get exposed. And we saw it before. They came back and won last week, right? To me, this is all blown out of proportion. Deion Sanders is a star. And when you're a star, man, you get the star treatment. And not only when you're a star, if you are a guy who is dominant in things that you do, then you're going to draw some hate, right? So I'm not making this thing a big deal. I just think that whole thing was unwarranted. But But hey, got his kids fired up. They was at home, and to be honest with you, Colorado stood no chance. They had no chance. But they got outclassed, they got outboxed, and now it's only up from here, right? Like, you cannot, what Deion say? This is the worst it's gonna be, right? So let me know your thoughts in the comments below, man. Still rooting for Prime. Good story, those kids at Buffalo changing that thing, but they got their butts kicked today, and it takes a real person to say that. All right. So with that being said, I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace.